in this edition of the Mike On Podcast.
Nigeria is a deep multi-ethnic and multi-religious nation, and these factors are shaping our politics these days. It has in fact deeply characterized our politics, sharply dividing Nigerians in recent weeks. A big question before us is, how deep is ethnicity in our psychology, and how powerful can it drive our political choices? What are the consequences of these division and the ethnic cards being played by politicians? Join Shewokin Baloye as a host fantastic panelist today on the Mike On Podcast.
The 60% of Us series.
Podcast, the 60% of our series. On this show, youth-centric program, we focus on issues affecting the young population, especially in this election season. The youth also get an unfiltered chance to air their views on the most topical issues of this period. I'm Sean Kimbaloe. The ethnic coloration hitting the current polity is intense and already becoming a tradition of every election cycle. The governorship and state houses of assembly election is approaching, and the presidential and national assembly election is off the way, but not entirely. Different party camps and supporters say hold strong views about the outcome and how the lax exercise of may affect now rescheduled March 11th election, now rescheduled to 18th of March, governorship and state houses of assembly elections. Well, some of the views and debates on social media these days are weaved around ethnic sentiment and further polarizing the already politically divided population. On my TV shows on Channels Television, which is Politics Today and Sunday Politics, we have engaged diverse groups on the issues shaping this year's election, but the impact of the ethnic politics poses is becoming worrisome. So I'm asking tonight, ethnic politics, are we ready for the consequences? What are the consequences, really? Can we continue in this kind of divide? What exactly are the extent in which this thing has gone so far in the last few weeks of campaigns and leading up to the election? As you know, I'm not the one who speak on the podcast. It's the guest, and you, wherever you may be watching or listening, welcome everyone, and let's get started. We have a very robust panelist set of panel on the podcast today, and let me get to introduce them. I have right here with me in the podcast studio is the chief executive of Connect Development, Hamzi Code. Hamzi Code, you're popularly known as Hamzi Code on social media. Hamzat Lawa, thank you so much, Hamzat, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Sean, for having me.
Yeah, and we have virtually Professor of Journalism, Professor Farouk Paragi. Thank you so much, Prof. It's good to see you. And also right there, virtually, we'll also be joined by an ace comedian, very popular, Sheyi Law. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Sheyi Law. I appreciate your joining in today. We'll be joined by some other panelists, but let's get started. I think I should start with Sheyi Law. Let me ask you, what do you think, or what is the extent of these ethnic politics that you have seen so far?
Well, I believe that without missing word, it's been a huge one, playing right before our eyes. We can try to sugarcoat it, that it's not what it is, but it is exactly what it is. We are seriously getting ourselves back to the Nigerian of the late 50s and 60s, And it is worrisome. It is worrisome. A lot of us can try to, play it down and try to, look at it from another lens that it's probably what it is not. But it is just what it is, whether we like it or not. We're seeing it developing into a full-fledged ethnic battle for who leads us as a people. And it's something that calls for concern, you know. And I believe that instead of trying to, again, rekindle the fire, we should try as a people or that have loud voices to try and bring it down and not keep fanning it.
Okay, so can you describe? I mean, you try to be, and I love the fact that you try to be very moderate. Can you describe the extent of this division that we've seen? I mean, no doubt, it goes without saying that Nigeria has been very divided. Not even before we got into this political season. But do you have examples of how divided we have been in these ethnic politics that have really hitten deep into the fabric of our nation?
I think since the 1979 election, where we had Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and then Shehu Shagari and Chief Obafemi Awolowo. This is one of the time where we're having three major people from the three tribes, the Igbo, Yoruba, and the Hausa tribe, probably just the northern tribe anyway. And then it is just like, for me, it looks like a repeat of what happened in 1979. And it seems to be like there is this target on a certain set of people. And the reason why I say a certain set of people is because of the three candidates really that contested the election, it seems that if you're supporting Peter Obi, you are safe. If you're if you supported Atiku, you are also fairly safe. But the moment you mention that you're supporting Ashwaju Ahmed, you just come under this heavy fire of tribal bigots name. And for me, it is worrisome. And for somebody who is in the entertainment industry, who...
Why? Because I know you are a Tinubu supporter. Why? What could be the reason?
For somebody like me who who is in the entertainment industry and has traveled to about 33 out of the 36 states of Nigeria, and I have not really been treated fairly in some of the states outside the Southwest. I find it very, comfortable to see the people who have done some things that I look back at and I'm like, you are the person saying somebody is tribal? When I have been to your states and I see what you do, and suddenly we are all saints now, and then the name tribal bigot suddenly just find its way into our dictionary and it's thrown, about anyhow. And suddenly a lot of people started lashing on that name, and it started finding hatred to a particular set of people, and it is really, really worrisome. It is dangerous for me. I believe it is absolutely dangerous, and if we don't tame it now, we might be, taking Nigeria back to where we're not supposed to be, really.
Prof, let me get your take.
Yes.
A lot of people have been expecting to hear from you. Same with the DGA. You guys have you have expressed your views, and I guess you've expressed it in such a way that you don't care whoever likes your views or not, but you've expressed it anyways. What are your views about these ethnic politics? And perhaps tell us, how far do you think these have gone?
There's nothing unusual about what's happening. We are a society that is patterned on ethnic and religious identities. To try to run away from that is to be escapist. You know, people are socialized into ethnic groups. They are socialized into religions, and they form the frames of reference which they appropriate reality. So to deny that, and that's what I see a lot of people trying to do, is to live in a self-created illusion. You know, it's not unusual for an Igbo person to support an Igbo candidate or for a Yoruba person to support a Yoruba candidate. If you're able to transcend that, that is commendable. But it's not everyone who has the capacity to transcend the comfort zones into which they're socialized, into which they're born. So there's nothing unusual. In the United States here, race is the basis for mobilization, is the basis for identity creation. And so people frame everything in racial terms. In Nigeria and many post-independence colonial African countries, ethnicity and religion are the basis for organizing popular identities. So in elections, when people vote, they don't vote as individuals. They don't even vote as people. They vote as identities. And identities transcend individuals, they transcend people. So if Sheyi supports Tinubu, it's not because he's a bad person. He is socialized into a certain cultural milieu. And a lot of people like to rationalize their choices by saying, no, it's because that person is competent. No, it's not about competence. Every single one of these politicians have the same attributes. They're all manipulators. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what they tell you. They campaign in poetry and they govern in prose and sometimes in drama. So the fact that this candidate says, I'm going to do this, or is more articulate in telling you what they're going to do than the other candidate doesn't mean that they're any better. And it's not just Nigeria. It's here, even here in the United States, the patron saint of capitalism and of democracy. So get this thing off about, no, I'm voting for competence because this is a person who's competent. I looked at all the candidates. I did a deep dive into their past and haven't seen any difference between any of the four major candidates. They're all basically the same people.
Really, Prof?
And there's a problem with Nigeria, which is more foundational and institutional than personal. So it doesn't matter who you put there. They're going to confront the same dysfunctions that have enabled that country to be where it is today. So when people vote, they are voting on the basis of their emotions, and those emotions are legitimate. They are valid.
Even
if we should not be ashamed of them.
Even if they are dangerous. I mean, is ethnic politics a good card to play?
Well, it becomes a problem if it's being used to divide. If it's being used to other people, if it's becoming violent, that's where the problem is. And I have a solution to this. Sheyi was talking about what, for me, given the uniqueness of our socio-historical experiences as a multi-ethnic nation that was forced into being by British colonialists for their own convenience, we need a country where elections, where political offices are rotated amongst regions, amongst states, amongst ethnic groups, among religious groups on a year. I mean, if look at the 2019 election, for instance, there was not as much ethnic tension in it as there is now, because the two major candidates were from the north. Incidentally, they were even from the same ethnic group, although from different regions of the north. And so the contentions that attended the election was just basically normal politicking. But this is the first time we're having the candidates that were ethnically based. In 2015, it was a lot less ethnic than it is now, because we had the political elites of the West supporting the political elites of the North. So that canceled out whatever regional differences might have emerged because Jonathan was from the South. But this time around, we had a Fulani from the Northeast running under the platform of the PDP. You have an Igbo man from the Southeast, the Labour Party, and you have Tinubu. But in spite of that, I want to make this. Let's come back and appreciate certain things that have happened and that are an improvement on the First Republic. Tinubu won almost as many votes as Atiku in the North. So that shows that the regional divide we talk about is not really as acute this time around as it was. Atiku won in Osun State, which is the state of Tinubu's birth. His nephew was the immediate past governor of Osun State. Atiku defeated him there. That never happened in the First Republic. In Lagos, whatever you may say about Lagos, it's still a Yoruba state. Peter Obi won there. That never happened in the First Republic. So we've seen a lot of improvement now, and the kind of support that Obi had or has in Yoruba land and in the Christian North is unprecedented. The support that Tinubu has in the North is unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented because Abiola had it, but note that Abiola, it was a two-way race. So there's a lot of improvement that we tend to ignore in our lamentation of the descent into ethnic ordering and violence and all of that. And I want us to take note of that fact.
Okay.
A lot of things improved.
All right. So let me come to the physical guest here in the studio with me. Hamza, does any of this issue resonate with you? Or, I mean, the same question I asked, and then I will take across the room, ethnic politics. Does it give you any fear?
Oh, yes. This is a call for concern, and it's really a shame. It's a shame that our politics has deteriorated from debating issues and even maybe bans on the digital space to now more like a header mentality or head mentality where you have mobs. You have gangster mob leader with their flocks of heads on the digital space where it's so toxic that you cannot take a position and be tagged as an independent mind under a democracy where freedom of speech and expression is supposed to be guaranteed. And it's really sad, because if you now share your thoughts or your position or your perspective and it does not align with these digital headers or the digital mobsters, then what they do is they gang up and they mobilize flocks of digital heads to come and flood your timeline and your notification. And it's really sad. See, let's call a spade a spade. And I think that where we are now, we cannot sugarcoat what's happening. Yes, Nigeria is deeply embedded in religion, in ethnicity and region. Yes, we've been amalgamated as a country or as a nation or a republic and have been brought together. But we also know that we're also fighting an identity crisis, And let's even go back memory lane. You cannot compare the millennials with the Gen Z when it comes to identity. There was that gap where we were not even matured enough to align appropriately, and where society is also putting pressure on us. See, come to think of it, yes, when you look at religion, a lot of people are either Muslim or Christian because they were born into a Muslim or Christian family. But none of them choose to be born into a religious family. But when you also look at region or you look at ethnicity, you cannot take away that from our fabric as a people or as a country. And yes, even see what I think is happening, Sheon, and this is what I think honestly, is a division and conquer a strategy. Let us divide them using ethnic and religious line, and then we conquer. And maybe we can root on that into power. And I think that's what's happening. Yes, we will say we are mobilely upward, we're a technology generation where, but with the conversation that has happened for the past 1 week, I buried my head in shame. People who you even hold to high esteem and you respect, and then when they open their mouth or when they post their position on the digital space, and then you cringe. You cringe because you just wonder, you know, ah, if this is how it is going to be, then what is that whole, we are brothers keepers? And for me, you know why it's relatively sad for me? Sean, for me, I've been to the 36 states of this country and not the capital, and not once, not twice. In short, last week, I literally toured the Niger Delta region. And, and I didn't have a problem. Of course, I have this identity in terms of my appearance. I've created a niche where when you see me, I present myself, like an average northerner with my very fancy hat. And I'm proud of my outlook. And nobody looked down on me on the ground at the grassroots that, oh, this Aboki or this Malam. They treated me with respect and dignity. And I even enjoyed my fisherman soup, in the Niger Delta region. But it is really sad because my fear now, Sean, is after the election, what now happened? Are we going to say that this never happened, or we'll just move on, or we'll pretend like it never happened? Some people will actually manifest after the swearing in. Because if we don't catch this and even roll back on it, to try to ensure that what we can do is have national cohesion, have debate and conversation that is protected, where people are highly protected to even talk about their views, but most importantly, in a manner that it does not, spit aspiration, or, it does not insult anybody or any region. But we all should be worried because I've been to Rwanda. I've been to Rwanda on a study. I've studied Rwanda and read their history and interviewed people who were alive during the genocide. And Sean, if we continue this way, our case will be worse than Rwanda. And look at our population, So we must curtail this. And I'm happy that this conversation has not eaten deep into the north. If you go to the southwest and the southeast, the conversation is crazy. No, you can't come to the public and say someone's region is a no man's land, or you want to say no, it is not done. You must respect people's culture, their history, their heritage. See, people will go to an extreme extent to protect what they believe it's theirs.
In truth, in today's world, where you have the mayor of London, who is not originally from that region, you have the prime minister of the UK, who is whose forebears are not originally from there. I mean, is it not looking like no place is?
Maybe I add one more. You have the former president of America, who has a root from Kenya, Nairobi. Are we saying we want to compare ourselves with the UK or the US? Are they ethnical or religious, sentimental people?
But we're already seeing Chukwudi representing Lagos State in the House.
See, Lagos State is a unique. Even the guy who sponsored the Not Too Young to Run bill, Honorable Tony Wolo, he was representing Ikeja in Lagos State. Lagos is a cosmopolitan city. They've opened themselves up. They want people to come and integrate and prosper. They see themselves as one of the fastest growing economy and cities around the world. But Sean, you're talking about 0.1% of 100%. And we cannot compare ourselves with America or UK in terms of advancement and exposure. So it is what it is. It is happening, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation. But we must tackle this. We must arrest it and roll back on it.
We will get to the point of what the implications are. Deji, one of the reasons why the producers of this show, they wanted you to come back to the podcast because you made some projections before the election, some very dangerous projections. But the projection is making you look like a prophet. But just give me 1 minute. Let me go to Cheta Nwaze, who is a strategist and a political commentator. It's good to see you, Cheta. Are there statistics, are there figures that we need to know that gives us an understanding of this ethnic politics?
Good evening, Chid. I said Chid. So good evening, Sean.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. To be honest, the question is not very clear. Um, is there data that gives an understanding of ethnic politics? I can't say off the top of my head, because again, the question isn't clear. However, what I would want to say is that ethnic politics is the default human nature. Human beings by nature are tribal. We all come from different places. We all come from different backgrounds, and we have a default. What we are watching, as dangerous as it is part of the process of nation building. Um, and the different identities that make up Nigeria are slowly being subsumed. The question we should be asking ourselves really is, what direction do we want to take? As difficult as things sound, and I happen to be in Lagos because I live in Lagos, the truth of the matter is that what we are seeing is not necessarily because of hatred, but because of scarcity. The Nigerian economy is not doing well. So when people are suddenly faced with scarce resources on the most parts, they begin to look for ways to basically crabs in a basket climb on top of one another. And one of the things that happens when crabs go in a basket is that they look for any little manner, any little thing that they can use to kick the other person out. The irony about this is that the identities that many of us are squabbling over at the moment are relatively new identities. An example that I always like to give is the first newspaper in Nigeria was Iwe Irohin fún àwọn ará Ẹ̀gbá àti Yorùbá. Forgive my Yoruba. I learned the little Yoruba that I know when I got married to a Yoruba wife. But the meaning of that newspaper's name is Newspaper for the Yorubas and the Egbas. It's a very interesting window into the identity of the Egba people when that newspaper was found in the middle of the 19th century. The Egba people did not see themselves as Yoruba. So, what changed in the course of the intervening 150 years? People who spoke similar languages assimilated and they became an identity. You'll be hard pressed to go to Abeokuta now and tell somebody that he's not Yoruba but Egba. He will consider himself Yoruba. And we're seeing that nation formation around Nigeria. Interethnic marriages are on the rise between people of different ethnicities. I'm an Igbo man. I'm married to a Yoruba woman. My closest friends, all of my closest friends, I struggle to think of those who are married to the same ethnicity. They exist, they are there, of course. If we are to, and I don't like to do this, but just for the sake of classification, if we assume the Hausa, Fulani, Yoruba, and Igbo as tier one ethnic groups, and I hate the word tribe because there's nothing, there are what's maybe 30 to 40 million Igbo people, and you tell me that I'm a tribe, but there are 4 or 5 million Croatians, and you say they're a nation. It doesn't make sense. Now, the tier one ethnicities, again for the sake of classification, will be Igbo, Hausa, Fulani, Yoruba. Then you have the tier two ethnicities, Ijo, Ibibio, Edo. Then you have one step lower. And if you notice, most of those ethnicities that are a step lower are disappearing. Natural assimilation, nation formation. So the key thing is this moment, how do we handle it? And I dare say that a lot of what we are seeing, especially in Lagos now, is because of a fight for access to resources. And that's one of the big problems. So there was something that Professor Perogi said in his submission. He made a suggestion about rotating positions annually between the regions. On the surface, it's a good idea, and I agree with it. But I would go further. We need to weaken Abuja entirely. One of the reasons we have all of this ethnic nonsense is because Abuja is too strong. So what we're seeing is a fight for access to resources being masked as identity politics. If the regions are much stronger, and when I say regions now, I would go a bit lower than the regions we had in the 1960s, because those regions were too big such that they were able to challenge the center. The 6 geopolitical zones that we have now may be a good fit, but I would prefer something along the lines of the 12 states of 1967 to 75. If we have those kind of 12 regions, and each one has a lot more control over what they do, you will find that over time, competence will genuinely begin to take precedence over identity, because at that point, there will be competition between the states. Take as an example, Osun State, just in the last week, waived right of way, which means that internet access in Osun is about to get a lot better. That is the kind of competition we want to start seeing from our regions. And when such things happen, you will find that people will begin to look for the best to do the job. So, over and above, as painful as all of what is happening appears, and it is painful, the truth is that it is the process, the painful process of nation formation. Where we go from here depends on the decisions that we take. I would want to talk to my bookie friend Hamza, and yes, I deliberately used that prescription there. Um, no, of course, me and Hamza, we go quite some way back.
No, he said
Our
it
politics
himself.
was never,
That is an aboki.
yeah, our politics was never really about debating issues. Politics in Nigeria was never really about debating issues. One way that you can judge a society is the quality of problems that they are solving, and we've remained for a very long time at solving low quality problems. I would argue that the time we had the highest quality problems to talk about was a period between 2011 and 2015. Unfortunately, we deteriorated. So it brings once again the question about what decisions we make, because it is the decisions that we make that will determine where we go. But ultimately, and depending on how you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, Nigeria is here to stay. So we need to learn to talk to each other, not shout at each other. One of the things that we have been doing for a very, very long time in this country is shouting at each other. That needs to change.
Thank you so much, Chata. Let me come to Deji now. Deji, what's your submission?
Well, thank you again for bringing me back to the show. I was here a few weeks ago, and you can see that my beards, I've shaved my beards in preparation for a town hall different from Balablu, Bolaba. Just like I rightly predicted the last time that this was going to happen. It was inevitable that what happened at the presidential election was exactly going to happen. I predicted it because you can't have a divided opposition and expect one of them to win. Just look at what was Kwankwaso doing like that in Kano. What did Obi think he was? What was Obi thinking? Neither what was also Atiku thinking, that they would defeat the incumbent by all those shenanigans. There's no way, So the opposition handed over this victory to Bola Tinubu. Nobody else, not the citizens, not the INEC officials who were scared of thugs at polling units or anything. It's the opposition that did this to Nigeria and nobody else. Most regrettable, especially as regards to the subject matter of today's discussion, is the use of religion for politics and ethnicity as well. For me, I'm particularly very unhappy with the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi. He started all these things. And yes, there have been quiet and tactical use of religion prior to now within our polity, but it has been very silent and never has it ever been this obvious. But Peter spent 7 months going from one church to the other, and he not only did he stop there, he went looking for endorsement from Khan. He was so desperate about looking for.
But was he the only one?
No, yeah. In this election, he was.
Is there anything wrong in consulting religious leaders?
If Atiku,
does the law forbid
yes,
it?
Yes, section 97 of the Electoral Act forbids use of religion of any kind You know, you cannot have a presidential candidate going to churches and saying church should take back their country, and he's contesting for election. If Atiku had gone around all the mosques since August last year, spent 7 months going around mosque all over the country campaigning, wouldn't the whole country go almost in flames condemning him? So it cannot be because it is Peter and he's a Christian and I'm a Christian, I should not condemn him. If Atiku does it, I'll condemn him. Peter has done it. He has set a bad precedence for the country. We have seen Reverend Fathers campaigning openly with Peter Obi's picture, logo of his party, threatening their congregants that if they don't vote for Peter, God is going to visit evil punishment upon them. They will die. Those things are wrong. You know, it is what has compelled many people up north to, at the last hour, you know, to also try to use religion, because you cannot have a leading presidential candidate who spent 7 months in an election moving from Cherubim and Seraphim to Catholic Church to Pentecostal to Dunamis to this to everywhere, you know, and he recruited pastors all over the country. In Jos, look at that pastor in Jos. They recruited pastors in Nasarawa all over the country to be campaigning for him. You know, it's very bad, you know, and aside the use of religion that Peter Obi did, he went further. Everywhere he went to in the north, he went to Southern Borno, you know, Southern Gombe. If he goes to Kano, he goes to Sabongeri, where members of his ethnic tribe is. You know, who does that? Goes to Lagos, go to Alaba Market. I don't know why people become so, you know, very unstrategic. You know, they are not mindful of their actions. They do not know that actions have consequences, you know, and so he did this on purpose. And when many of us criticize him, his supporters, who are extremely close to him, who are always with him, snapping pictures, the defense they put up is that he's only trying to energize his base. So because he did not have structure, he wanted to use structure of the church to become president of Nigeria. How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me even as a Christian. How can you want to use structure of the church to become president of a multi-religious, you wanted to use structure of tribe to become president of a multi-ethnic and multicultural society like Nigeria? So this is an unserious. He was never serious as a presidential candidate. The most painful part is that he has brought so much stain to Christianity and so much stain to issue of tribal politics. And that is why you can now see the momentum with which politicians are now campaigning. Look at in Kaduna, they are openly recruiting imams now for the gubernatorial election in Kaduna. Openly. There is a letter where a memo leaked where I think it's from the Kaduna State government, where Malams have been paid to campaign for Muslim tickets allegedly in Kaduna. Then in Lagos, politics of tribe. People are now saying you are not, Lagos is no man's land. Lagos belongs to Yorubas, this and that. So Peter set the template for this. And this is why we keep telling politicians. Yes, we know that politicians generally don't care about their country. All they care about is, the end justifies the means. As long as they are able to use religion, ethnicity, whatever, tribe to drive home their point. They don't care even if the country burns to the ground. However, you know, the irreducible minimums, you know, in any democratic contest is that you don't divide the populace, that even if you win the election, you cannot govern. You know, and that is really sad for someone like me that has witnessed, I've actively voted since 1999, you know, and it's only in 2019 when Buhari locked me up because they didn't want me to vote that I have not voted, you know. So I do not understand why Peter became so desperate, you know, that he went as far as using tribe and religion to canvass for votes all across Nigeria.
I mean, you keep hammering on Peter Obi,
yeah,
but he was not the only one in the race. He was not the only one who met with Khan.
Did you see?
He was not the only one who met with imams.
Yes. So
do you have any personal thing against him?
Well, basically, did you see Atiku moving from church to church for 7 months? Did you see even Kwankwaso visit any mosque? The reason why people say, oh, I said Peter will not win more than 2 states, that now he has won more than 2 states. Why don't I say if he wins more than 2 states, I will respect him? The reason why I can never respect somebody that uses religion and tribe to campaign is because those are not his votes. Those are votes for the church. Those are votes of those bishops and those reverends, those pastors that were threatening their members that they must vote Peter. I respect Kwankwaso more because Kwankwaso did not visit one mosque to campaign. You know, Kwankwaso had 1 million votes, but he produced 18 members of House of Reps. He has my respect more than Peter Obi. There's nothing personal. If I see somebody doing anything wrong, if Atiku had spent 7 months going around mosque, I would be more critical of Atiku than I have been of Peter. Considering the fact that I'm even a Christian. So for me criticizing Peter, it means that Peter has done something very wrong that he shouldn't have done. He knows in his heart of heart that he shouldn't have done this kind of campaign, except if he's not being truthful to himself.
You can come in. It's a prof, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can come in.
Okay. So we need to contextualize this so that we understand it better. There is the structure of Christianity makes it possible for politicians to go from church to church. In Islam, that is not even possible. You cannot go to the mosque and campaign for a political candidate in a mosque. So what people do in Islam is different.
But I thought, Prof, that in fact the word around is that it's even more, it's easier to go to the mosque, and because there seems to be a manner in which people listen to their imams, and when they get a word, everybody acts in the same manner. I mean, that's what we often hear.
Yeah. So it's true to it's a multi-step flow theory or process. If a politician in a Muslim North wants the imam to influence the electorate, he doesn't go to the mosque because there's no provision for a politician to come after the salat to come and say, okay, well, let's listen to this guy talk about politics. No, the imam might use the sermon as the basis to preach, and then veer off into debate about the elections and campaign for a candidate. So the fact that Atiku or Tinubu did not go from mosque to mosque to canvass votes does not mean that they did not do it. They also had imams that they were close to, whose loyalties they cultivated. However they did it is not for me to say, but they also cultivated the loyalties of imams, and those imams campaigned on their behalf. But they did not have to go to the mosque because the mosque does not lend itself to that. Peter went to churches because the churches lend themselves to a Christian coming there and campaigning. So let's be fair to him here, that it's not that he introduced it. This has always gone in the North for a very long time. Politicians use imams who now influence the faithful, and has been going on for a very long time. But a lot of people don't even know that because, well, most of it is done in Hausa, which is not accessible to other people in the South. But when Southern Christian politicians use the church to campaign, they use the English language, which everyone has access to, or most people have access to. So they're a little more exposed. So I agree with Deji that that's not been strategic, because their options are in open. Everyone knows them, everyone hears about them. But what Muslim politicians do, which is not different from what Christian politicians do, it's not open to the public, or as much to the public as the Christians. So let's be fair to both of them. Every single one of them exploited whatever they could use to win the election. It was not only Peter Obi who did it. But we'll be making references to the United States and to Britain and all these other things. But I think we are unduly valorizing these societies. I live right here. And as I'm talking to you, there's talk of civil war. Here in Atlanta, you can bring a goat as the candidate for the Democratic Party. And you can bring Barack Obama, he says he's a Republican now. Put them in election, the goat will win. If you go to Mississippi,
based on color and race.
Not color, it's political ideology. So it's about the Republican Party, Democratic Party. They almost have the same kind of effect as ethnicity has in Nigeria.
But Prof, look,
religion has in Nigeria. It's not about merit.
So the question today is born out of the sensitivities of Nigeria as a nation. America has its own sensitivities as well. And
Exactly.
the Baptists, the whites, the that, they have their own votes that they get. I mean, they give to these politicians in America. But we're
Absolutely.
looking at the sensitivity of the Nigeria as a nation right now, whether or not we can afford an ethnic politics or even a religion politics.
Exactly. America,
That's the
America,
point I'm making.
yes, America by and
It's not
large
about whether
is
we can afford.
Can I say something? It's whether we can
by and large,
afford
America
or
is a
not
Christian
afford
nation.
is
By and large.
irrelevant.
The
We are
the
human
Hold on,
beings, and
Cheta seems to be.
yeah. See, whether we can afford or not afford is irrelevant. We are human beings, and human beings are by nature tribal. The ethnic thing will always come up. Once there are differences between two groups of people, it will come up. The key thing is how we handle it and how arguably it is weaponized or not. So,
So, Cheta,
um,
has it been weaponized in this period?
it has been weaponized in Nigeria pretty much in every election. So, for example, when DG says Peter Obi started it in this election, he's wrong. The truth of the matter is that from the very first whistle of the election, even before Peter Obi emerged, we had already started, at least for those of us in Lagos, we had already started hearing noises about, oh, Igbo this, Igbo that. I was here in Lagos when we were told to go into the lagoon. So I choose not to dwell on those things, not because I don't think they're important, but because I know that they are symptoms of a problem. And one of our issues in this country is that we tend to dwell on the symptoms rather than chasing the problem. So to use an example, and Professor Perogi said something very, very poignant about the United States. If you happen to visit the United States, sit down and listen to Newsmax. Then just spend 6 hours listening to Newsmax. Then spend another 6 hours listening to Fox News. Then switch over to MSNBC and spend another 6 hours listening to that. Then spend another 6 hours listening to, say, CNN. You may as well be living on different planets based on what you are hearing in the different stations. That is tribalism. The difference is that it is not ethnic based tribalism. Now, the ethnic based tribalism that we see in Nigeria is as a result of two things. Number one, the manner in which our country was brought together, and the fact that the elites have not built an economy that actually discourages it. I once sat in a restaurant in New Orleans and listened to a member of the Louisiana National Guard insist that Louisiana would have better been served if it had not been a part of the United States. Fringe voices like that will always exist in every society. The issue is, has the society won the argument? America has arguably won the argument because America has delivered broad-based prosperity to its people. Nigeria has not won the argument because Nigeria has not delivered broad-based prosperity to its people. Having said that, again, when you try to insist that, oh, Peter Obi did this, Peter Obi did that, you forget that the Izala movement, for example, on the 12th of January 2019, endorsed Buhari publicly and asked all their adherents to vote for Buhari. Is that not religious politics? If we want to look at it from that angle, but again, as Prof said earlier, and for the record, I read a lot of what Prof writes every week, but sometimes I disagree, sometimes I agree. It's the way it is. But as he said earlier in this discussion, very simply put, when we have when what we're saying is identity creation, and there's nothing unusual in what is happening, we need to have the long view. And the long view is that Nigeria is in a bad place economically, so the outcome, regardless of whether it was Bola Tinubu that won, and again, because there are legal cases, we can't for certain say that he has won. So this is just at the moment he's the president-elect, but the Supreme Court may decide otherwise. We don't know. But whether it is Bola Tinubu that wins, or Atiku wins, or Peter Obi wins, or Kwankwaso wins, the outcome will not be materially different. In 4 years' time, we will still be facing these issues of high inflation, high unemployment. The real issue we should be talking about is the fact that Nigeria has the combined total of Belgium, Croatia, and Tunisia who are not employed. They wake up every morning, they don't have anything to do. Those people are angry. So when people are angry like that, it's open space for demagogues. Sean, you are familiar with the fact that I was a Kadira Ahmed's interpreter when she interviewed Nnamdi Kanu. We went to his whatever it is in Umuahia. There were 20,000 people outside his house that day. 20,000 young Igbo men outside his house. Why were they outside his house that day? Because they have nothing to do. If these people had something constructive to do every day, do you think they would have been listening to Nnamdi Kanu? That is the problem. We are weaponizing the poverty, the unemployment, the high inflation, and then we are sitting down there and wringing our hands at the inevitable outcome. And then looking to cast blames left, right, and center. Whereas the very elites who practice that same divide and rule, which they inherited from the colonial masters, when it is time to chop money together, they all sit down together and chop the money and don't ask about ethnicity or religion. So why do we allow these things to divide us? All that is happening today, right now, is the classic divide and rule. Oh, that Igbo man is your problem. So you will not look at the man who is chopping your money, who has something called alpha beta that is squaffing your money. Instead, you'll be looking at Ukeke that is struggling to make a living in Latipo. That is classic divide and rule. That is what we need to look at. How do we bring the generality of Nigerians to earn a decent living and live in comfort? Those are the questions. We need to stop ourselves from being manipulated into focusing on all these low quality problems and move to the high quality problems. Inflation is officially 21%. In reality, it is much higher. What that means is that, let us assume for a second that it is really 21%. What that means is that every 4 or 5 years, food prices of things will double. Do people's wages double every 4 or 5 years? No, they don't. What that means is that everybody gets poorer. That is the real problem. Not this very low quality, Deji, for example, is from Kogi states. He's from the Okun people. Some Okun people agree that they are Yoruba, some do not. People like me, when old people from my side, when you ask them in Asuigo, they will say, I'm Masu Onicha, I'm Masu Ahaba. Because the identity is fairly recent. These are identities that did not exist 100 years ago. Why do we want to kill ourselves on identities that are still evolving?
But let me allow Sheyi to come in. And I see that Deji is nodding his head, either in agreement or disagreement. Sheila, I see how much you battle to hold your own when there are conversations around who you support and how the tendencies. You said it. No matter who, if anybody wants to listen, you support who you want to support. The question is what our society looks like after all these elections. I saw what happened in 2015. Lagos was very tensed just because of what a traditional ruler said. And it looks to me that everywhere the Igbos were in Lagos at the time, it was so tense. I've lived in the midst of Hausas, predominant Hausa people. And whatever little flame that you put in the midst, it can reach in 2 hours. You can feel it in the deep south. Sheila.
Thank you very much. You see, I listened through everybody's submission, and there is something that we cannot deny. As much as we all want to say, oh, we are not divided along tribal lines, along ethnic lines, it shows in our conversation. You know, when Deji was talking, he had to hammer on Obi's strategy, which kind of looks as if, he was, walking the parts of the religion line and then the tribal line, ethnicity line, and all those stuff. And then when Cheta started talking, he had to mention alpha beta. And somehow,
I was trying to look at your reaction. I was checking out for your reaction.
Somehow that kind of showed me that whether we like it or not, our choice of candidate has put us in a position where in our expression, the tribalism kind of chips out, whether we like it or not. And this is what we're seeing right now. But the truth is this, the question we should ask ourselves is, what is really driving this person for the person he's supporting? And that is something that I think gets lost in the midst of
You're making the error of thinking that I'm supporting Peter Obi. At least you can ask. I can take you to my own and you can ask them. I did not support Peter Obi in this election. So let's just. It's something that I found very interesting throughout the electoral cycle. People just assume that because me and Peter Obi generally share the same umuna, that I was supporting him by default. I did not vote for Peter Obi. Let's just get that out of the window so that we can actually have a conversation based on facts. Carry on.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and so for me, like you said, the moment somebody like me said, "Oh, I'm supporting Ashwaju," because I made it known. I had to come out and make it known. At first, I wanted to keep it to myself, but then I saw this constant attack and bullying on social media of the people who had come out to say they're supporting Ashwaju, and it gave me great concern. And I felt like I'll be a coward if I can't even mention it that I'm supporting this person. And I should be able to articulate the reason why I'm supporting this person beyond tribe, beyond ethnicity, and which was something that I tried to do every time I had the opportunity to go on live broadcast or putting something out there. For example, I lived through the Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's era in Lagos State, his governorship era in Lagos State. And I know the development that I witnessed during those times, and then when debates and argument begins to leave achievements and it begins to go to personal hits and all those stuff, it gave me room for great concern. And I'm beginning to ask myself, are we really talking about what this person has done that I think is enough to justify the person being the president of the country? Or we're talking about the person's past, which, were not part of the person's political journey in its time as the Lagos State governor. And so, again, like I said earlier, I mentioned earlier that I had reasons to be in the midst of some colleagues who are entertainers. And in time past, I heard what they had to say about their choice of candidate now. Then way back in 2012, 2011, 2012, I know how much they condemned this person, and suddenly this person has become a saint to them. And these are the same people who are trying to paint somebody like me as a tribalist, that I have had opportunity to go with them to shows in their states, and then their government officials asked us to come visit, and then they leave me in the hotel room, and then they said, later I'm hearing, they said we shouldn't call you, say you be Yoruba boy. And then all of a sudden, I am the person who is now a tribalist. And these are the same people that comes to my side, the Southwest, and we go for shows in the Southwest, and nobody stops them from saying, oh, let's go and see the governor or anything. And in fact, one of the things that I even noticed, we have the governorship election that is coming, these same people have, even for me as a Yoruba person, these same people have more access to the governor than I do. And yet, when you ask them questions to say, what are the things you tell the governor when you see him? They can't pinpoint anything. And now they are sudden activists for a better Nigeria. And I asked myself, is that how it really works? I mentioned on one of the program that I was that I've only had the opportunity to meet Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu thrice in his time as governor of Lagos State. And these were at different movie premieres. Aside that, I've never had the opportunity to go to the government house to meet him and all those stuff. And on one of those occasions, I remember that in our discussion, I talked about the Lekki-Epe Expressway. And about a month down the line, work started on that road. And for me, these are the things that I expect people who are in my industry to constantly do. Be the voice of the people. If you are going to condemn somebody, be constructive about it. If you are going to make demands, please make your demand and don't fight. You don't be destructive while you're making.
I mean, I wouldn't want to derail the conversation. I was going to, because I've had this conversation with people, and they say the entertainment industry is even more divided than Nigeria itself when it comes to when politics came and election season came. There are those of the views that, in fact, entertainers were sharply divided. The endorsement, whether entertainers have the right to endorse any candidate and all of that. So it brings us to the point, and I want us to look at the consequence of all of this. So
let me quickly say something.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're talking about online right now, talking about this, the sudden throwing up of words of tribal bigots, and all those stuff, were actually things that some entertainers permitted and they are allowed to fester. I was watching one program where Okon Lagos said, right now that we are just cyberbullying you. It is not war yet. When you make such statement to condone cyberbullying, you understand me? You are inferently saying that people can also bully others offline. Because this
I think I want to step in here, and my apologies if I keep interrupting Sheyi, but when you say that it is suddenly people are calling people tribal bigot and all of that, that's not true. I was one of the first people who was a victim of that particular slur. The first time I was called a tribal bigot was on the 12th of April 2015. I had campaigned for Buhari.
There seems to be some connection issue with
2015. I joined the Buhari campaign. I campaigned for him. But before he was sworn in, I was immediately called a tribal. Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I think he picked up. Yeah, you are breaking up, but I think it's better now.
Okay, to repeat, when people say, "Oh, it is suddenly that the word bigot is being thrown about," no, it's not. At least I've given a specific date, 12th of April 2015. That was the day that the president-elect of Nigeria at the time, who I had campaigned for a few weeks before, banned the AIT from covering him. Garba Shehu issued that statement. And I criticized it, saying there is a process, no matter what AIT may have done. And immediately, a group of people who have been my friends, in quotes, just a few weeks before, began to criticize me for criticizing them and call me ethnic bigots, tribal bigots, ethnic bigots, tribal bigots. And it became a thing for the next 2 years. This is recorded fairly recent history. 8 years ago is not that long. So when people start acting as if what is happening on social media now is a new thing, it's not. It is only a reaction to, unfortunately, the beds that we made. We allowed a herd of people move from account to account on social media.
I sincerely think that what is happening now has never happened before in social media in Nigeria.
I disagree with you.
Neither has it ever happened in the polity. At no time in the history of Nigeria since independence has any politician ever spent 7 months going to church, church by church campaigning. At no time in the history of this country has any politician ever went for a national campaign A
happened
politician,
before,
whenever he
is
goes to
happening
the north,
again.
he
The
goes to
only
go and
difference
visit only
now is
Christians,
that
campaign in the
social
Christian
media is
place,
actually
goes to
making it
Sabongeri, where
very,
members
very
of his tribe
amplified,
are,
so
goes to
everybody can
campaign there,
see
they
it.
leave the state. What kind
And
of a
in
country
my
is this?
view,
Why are we
it is
trying to change
actually
history?
better.
Even if
It is
other
actually, we're
politicians in
not
the
trying
past
to
had
change
used
history
religion
here.
to secretly campaign, should a presidential candidate that is claiming that he wants to come and do change or bring change, should he spend 7 months going to church by church to campaign and people are justifying it on national TV? Who does these kind of things, for God's sake? So are we now saying that because somebody in the past had used religion or tried to campaign before, that it is now right for Peter Obi to be doing it? And these are the people that were talking that they wanted to bring change to Nigeria. You can imagine. How can a
Deji, are you
presidential
listening
candidate
to
spend
the rest
7
of us?
months
Nobody has said
moving
that
from
anything
church to
was
church
right.
campaigning
What is happening is
for a
that people are
presidential
just
election of a
fact-checking
multi-religious?
that
This
this
is not
not
America
the
where everybody is a Christian
first time.
or almost
The
everybody is
very
a Christian.
nature of
In
the
Nigeria, there are
country
plenty
that we
Muslims here.
run
There are plenty
means that
Christians
it will
here.
happen
How
again.
can a presidential candidate of a political party spend 7 months moving from church to church, recruiting pastors to campaign for him?
Okay, so
Who does that?
if I may,
just a
Shell,
moment.
I
Go ahead.
think it's important that we use our voice to calm nerves down and also reflect, because see, if this goes out of hand, it will consume all of us.
In fact, that's the reason why I want us to talk about the consequence. Sometimes when you don't know how bad the fire will burn you, and when it burns you, what happens to your finger, you may not be able to envisage your action in wanting to dip your hand in the fire. What are the consequences of ethnic politics? We've said it happens in other climes, but can we afford it in Nigeria? What are the consequences, if you may want to raise that?
Shell, can I quickly come in? You see, I was on Twitter yesterday, and I had a bit of a conversation with one guy that calls himself Oracle.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know his name actually, Abdul something. You know, and
Abdul Mahmoud.
Yes, Abdul Mahmoud or something. Yeah, Abdul Mahmoud. I needed to read what he said, and I tried to make a submission to what he was trying to do. You know, he said you are burning markets in Lagos in an all attempt to do the Igbos in. Fools, you are crippling Lagos' informal economy and setting your people up for reprisal attacks elsewhere. Go to Sapele, you will find century-old communities of Yorubas. A road is even named Yoruba there. And this is it. There's not been any formal investigation to show that the act was perpetrated by a Yoruba person. And even if it was perpetrated by a Yoruba person, this does not mean that all the Yorubas in Lagos State support such action. And you know, when you have people speak like this, and you know that they have this mob and large number of followers who are urging them on and praising them on what they're saying, it gives me room for concern. And I tried to come in. I said, this is an oracle that is lacking in discernment because of the rush to speak and malign some people. You can embellish stupidity with wisdom. Those who are deep thinkers will always see through the glitter. Stop finding hatred in a bid to spew intelligence. You know, and the reason why I have to say that is this. You can make some assumptions up, you know, and then put some wisdom in between those assumptions and try to sound like somebody who is intelligent. You know, but again, we already have a problem that has divided us and not ethnic line, whether we like it or not. It has always been there. Even from books that are written by Awolowo, the interviews that were done by the Alhaji Amadu Bello, the Saldana, you know, of Sokoto, you know, several the Akintola interview and all those stuff has shown us that right from our independence until now, there is a line that divides us along ethnicity. But then we are trying as a generation of people, what we should try to do is to preach togetherness.
All right.
And if we are going to preach that, we must be able to call out people who are trying to take us, along that same line and building hatred amongst us.
In terms of
All right.
But
solutions, for me,
instead, you see a generation of people who just swallow, like I call them, the headline readers. They pick the headline and then they don't read the body and try to put what the person is saying into context, and then they hail the person. And just because the person thinks he has a lot of followers online.
Sheila, I just hope that I want us to get to a point where we can bring home the conversation, and it's a question that the topic is asking: the consequences. If we do not know the consequences, these actions will go on and on. And I was going to start by asking, allowing Hamza to start by talking about what are the possible consequences of these ethnic politics? What are the dangers, the consequences?
One is the fact that we'll literally become warlords. This is the reality. We'll literally become warlords. So what would happen is it would metamorphose into some form of war. First, it will start as a civil war, and then you see neighbors start hacking each other, and then people start occupying territories and controlling it. And because people want to protect their loved ones and their property, and then they become warlords. Recently I was talking to some of my friends, and I say, if this country go up in flames, you see all of us here, we're just laughing and thinking it's a joke. Some of us here will become warlords. We'll literally control militia. Yes. Mind you, how does civil war even erupt? You see, now it's digital. If, for example, one person decide to go to extreme and then just go and hack another person that is from different religion or different ethnicity, that's the end. How do you curtail that? And now with social media where things go viral, and the fact that we're also dealing with fake news, misinformation, and disinformation, the cyber warfare has already started. What is left is just to ignite the physical warfare, and we're totally finished. And I want to use an example of the insecurity. Sharon, do you know in 2013, 2014, in short, from 2012 to 2014, I traveled by road to the 36 states of the Federation. Now, from 2015 till date, there are some states that I cannot go to. Just because we thought that this insecurity is only predominant in the Northeast. So we that were in the Northwest, the North Central, the South, we're all fine. And this is how we're also looking at this. So the consequences that it would deepen the mistrust. So take the civil service, for instance. You have different ethnicity and different religion. Imagine if anything go wrong in our civil service sector, where two people have a disagreement and it goes out of hand and they hack each other. Then it will just go out there on social media with the fact that now there are no gatekeepers in the digital space. So these are the consequences. Where we'll see each other, and then there will be that question mark where we can't.
that come out to say that they have intel that there are possibility of violence that have been planned by other DG consequences. I mean, the reasons why we cannot go along this line.
Yeah, because we'll go the Rwanda way if we do not stop, because these things will eventually degenerate. And once they degenerate, all this rationalization of use of religion and politics, there will not even be atmosphere to come on TV to rationalize it. Politics is not a religious affair. Neither is it a tribal affair. And this is why pastors and imam, they must stay in church and focus on salvation. They should leave politics alone. I don't see why a pastor will be on the campaign train and he's using the pulpit. If you want to be a politician, resign from the pulpit. Go buy a membership form of APC, PDP or Labour Party or NNPP or AAC or ABGA. Go and join them and do the politics with the politicians. You can't be using the pulpit for politics now. In a church, there will be APC, PDP, NNPP, different members there. So why should you turn your church to a Labour Party secretariat or a PDP secretariat? Because that's what churches have become since August in this country, where people are openly using salvation to canvass and con people in the name of politics. Again, most importantly, you see, tribe is a very dangerous thing, especially the use of tribe in politics. It's the fastest way to start a genocide. So we have seen the spiral effect of the presidential election now on the state elections, where we're now seeing people openly alleging others of tribalism. Again, we must also be mindful. The only zone in this election, like I had said initially, the only zone in this election that had the moral justification to vote in the way they voted was the Southeast. Despite the fact that I was not pleased with the voting pattern of the Southeast, but it is justified because the Southeast had a record of having voted every other zone in this country. The Southeast voted Obasanjo in 1999 and 2003. The Southeast voted Yaradua, voted Jonathan. They may not have voted Buhari in 2015, but the reason was because
have a consistency in pattern.
Yes, the reason was because they aligned with PDP. You understand? So, but aside that, just like I said, although I find the figures from there and the voting pattern uncomfortable, but it is excusable. But that is not to say that people should use tribe and religion to campaign. We can, on no condition, should any citizen that mean well for this country, whether politician or a priest or anybody or somebody that is apolitical, stand on any platform and say because somebody has done it in the past, therefore other people should be doing it. It is manifestly unconscionable and unjustifiable to use religion and tribe to campaign.
We've seen what has happened in the past in places like Kano, and I was talking to a friend earlier, and I said the reason why Lagos cannot afford to derail or to go the ethnic or tribal or religious way is because it's the economic nerve of Nigeria. Is the commerce center of Nigeria. If anything happens in Lagos, it will affect the economy of Nigeria. Nigeria's economy is so fragile at this moment. Prof, let me come to you. I have a few people on Twitter Spaces that will allow their intervention. But the consequences, you live in the United States, there are consequences. People, someone just wakes up in the morning and goes to the mall and open fire on them. Someone just sees another race or tribe and open fire on them. What are the consequences that should deter us from going in the manner in which we're seeing things degenerating?
I think the two previous speakers have captured it brilliantly. When you have deep ethnic divisions, you have mutual distrust, and when you have distrust, you have difficulty forming meaningful, enduring relationships. It even affects businesses. If you think because someone belongs to a certain ethnic group that they fit in certain stereotypes and are going to manifest certain negative attributes that are assigned to that ethnic group, then you're going to be reluctant to do business with them. And when that happens, it affects everything. So I agree with them perfectly, except that I'm a little more hopeful about what is happening than many people tend to be. And of course, it's because of my comparative advantages. I see that this happens all the time. My mom was born in Benin Republic, and that country is seen as one where people tend to get along a little better than we do in Nigeria, but they also have ethnic tensions after every election. And in the United States here, Deji was talking about using religion and ethnicity to campaign. I see here churches asking people to vote Trump or to vote the Republican Party. And this same conversation is taking place here. People are saying churches should be denuded of their tax exempt status since they're getting into politics. So that happens a lot here. They call Democrats Democrats. And you see that happen all the time within my neighbors. So religion has always been very central to the political process. It's not ideal. I'm not encouraging it, but it happens. There's no society on earth where people have not weaponized and instrumentalized religion and ethnicity and other primordial features to achieve political ends. So we are not alone. I think that knowledge that we are not alone should give us a little calm and a little more reason for hope. And as I've written repeatedly in my columns, Nigeria is moving in the direction of evolving as a nation. Keta just said he's married to a Yoruba person. I am married to an Igbo woman.
Wow.
And my children, my first wife who died is from Deji's place. She identified as Yoruba because she was born in Ilorin and went to school in Ibadan. So some of my children that I had with her are half Yoruba and half from my place. When I remarried in 2014, I married someone from Okija. And the Okija people are my in-laws now.
You're a true Nigerian prof.
Yes, so I really don't see
by the virtue of marriage.
Yeah, by virtue of marriage.
Yourself and Cheta.
I'm bringing these examples not to. I personally don't like people advancing their personal stories to make claims about their identity, to make claims about their ideological direction. But I'm giving this example to show that increasingly that is happening, not because anyone's forcing anyone to do it, but because they think it's ideal. The more we stay together as a nation, the more we realize that we are more alike than unlike. And then, so we are giving back to children who have emotional investment in multiple identities. And in fact, right now, the next generation, like my children's generation, are more Nigerian than any generation of Nigeria has ever been, because that's all that they know. They don't have investment in ethnicities like we do. I'm not saying that they're not going to have their own contradictions as they grow up, because as I've consistently said, one of the most homogeneous societies you can find on earth is Somalia. Everyone is a Muslim, not just a Muslim, a Sunni Muslim. And they all speak the Somali language. In fact, there's a study that shows that they are all descended from the same ancestors. Their language, they don't even have dialects. The Somali language that they speak doesn't even have dialects. In Yoruba, you have Ijebu, you have Ijesha, you have Egba. Yeah. They don't even have dialects. You know, they are very unique in that sense. Yet, they've not had a central government since the 1990s, early 1990s. Right. Why? Yeah. They are divided on the basis of clans. So ethnicity is gone, religion is gone, but they have created clans.
All right, Prof.
So
let me, yeah. So yeah. Let me. I'll come to Sheila and Cheta just in a moment. Let me allow some of the participants on Twitter Spaces. I'll get a few of their interventions. I see a few people whose hands are raised on Twitter Spaces, and if some of them have made speakers on the platform, if they can quickly come in. Unmute. I see Comrade Abiyos Ronnie, who is at Abba M at Abiyos. If you can unmute and let's get your view on the conversation, the consequences, and how we can build a better society devoid of these ethnic division.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
You know, so what I will say is that all of us will know the consequences of this ethnic politics, and we are deceiving ourselves, we lie to ourselves, acting like we don't know what will happen, and we obviously know it. So this consequence is obvious that use of ethnic, religion, and religion in politics will definitely divide us, and I'm curious and scared if Nigeria will survive. It is obvious in many of our states currently now that it is so diverse. We are diverse. And how do you think that a diverse society will progress, will develop? How? So I think that all of us, any of us in this country knows that this politics, especially this 2023 election, has diverse Nigeria and Nigerians. And this will lead to I'm even worried myself. I'm worried. Consider the vote. Any person, anyone is voting from his region, or person that is his have the same face, that's religion. And as Professor Farouk Ferogi said, is that let us consider them. All the top 4 candidates are the same. And these people never wish better for this country. They're not contesting for we the masses. consider the situation of Nigeria from the return of democracy in 1999 to date. Where is the progress? What did we get? What do we have as a nation? And these people are still using religion, campaigning in election just for their political gain, and we are still acting like we don't know the consequences. No, this is not possible. So saying,
all right.
And all.
Yeah. So let me thanks so much. Let me get some other people's views. I can see Mohammed Waziri's hand up. I can see also Nima Salih's. Yeah. If any one of you can unmute so that you can give your intervention quickly.
Shogun, good evening. Thank you, brother. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Nice to be among you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Nigerian politics. I've not ever seen an eye in Nigerian politics that have a division calculated by tribal cards, religion card, and tribal religion and what's that is yes, these are the main key. Unfortunate, my brother, I may say is my brother because he's a Nigerian, Peter Obi. Let me give you a mere example of what he does in Borno State when he came. He went to that area we call St. Patrick. He went there. His people come from that place, come to the Rama Square. Those are projects that belong to all the Christian within Borno State. They have their churches, they live around that area. Those people come down to the Rama Square. He make his campaign, whatever. He didn't even visit our traditional leaders. In fact, the show supposed to be visited, at least. If he wants us to follow him, at least. But he doesn't do so. He did what he's going to do, and he left. He didn't care about us, the other Muslims. But he jumped from one to another, saying church should come back and collect that country. So we, the Muslims, are we not Nigerians? Obi has bring a damage to Nigerian politics that I will never forget in my life, because this damage that this guy brought to the political arena, it has divided all Nigerians. Now everybody has taken a side. Shogun, I'll give you this for a fact. You know what I've been in a space, in one house space in Kano. I think there was a playing either Kano, I don't know. They were saying, how would they wish if this thing would play this way? They could have the three APC candidates. They should have at least, the APC, PDP, and NNPP. They could have merged to one person. As far as they are playing the religion card, we Muslims, we don't preach politics in mosques, but we can go to any Islamic leader, any Islamic scholar, seek for his campaign, seek for his support. You will have any problem there. And let me give you a minor example. When the Jamaatul Islam, Izala. So when they hold their spaces, the thing they did there was the leader says, okay, we are about 170 something. Okay, let's everybody come on board for who he wants to support. You can go and come and write whoever wants to support. Do you know that as well the Tinubu gets 17 out of 100? Atiku gets 74 out of 100. 100 or something, gets 74. Then the leader says, okay, fine, we accept it.
Mr. Waziri, can you quickly wrap up? I have a few more people that I'd like to have so that you can submit quickly, quickly, so that we let one or two other people speak.
Okay. I'll do that. Let me just put this into you, please. So then he says, okay, I stand with Ashwaji Bola. 20 of them say, whatever you say is we're going to follow. Say, okay, me, I stand with Ashwaji Bola. And you go to your candidate that you want. But where has Obi done this? I cannot go to Obi's face today and says I'm from APC. They will insult me from bottom to toes. Even as I'm speaking to you, I've seen a DM from somebody that is saying you are mad. So for me to just have a political sentiment that I belong to a party, a political party, I become a man, I don't know what I'm doing. And those things happen in obedience spaces.
All right. Let me.
What is
Yeah. Mr. Waziri, let me allow one or two more people on this space. Chidility, I don't know if you're here.
Sure, I don't know. Can I come up?
Yeah, sorry.
I've been raising my hand for a while.
Sorry, who is that?
This is Falayo Power.
Okay.
Dr. Power. Falayo Power.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So it's been an excellent space. Thank you so much. And quite educative.
You're welcome.
And it's really funny that we are trying to rewrite the whole history of how we got here. I was born in the 80s. I've been active in politics since the late 90s when I was eligible to vote. And I've not seen the country as polarized as what we have now. And it's intentional because we can't blame politicians for doing what they will do to win elections. But we are the ones that have to choose whether we want to follow them down that rabbit hole or not. It's unfortunate that the leading candidate before the elections, who eventually ended up winning the elections, decided to choose a same religion ticket, which is something that we were not supposed to do at that time in this country. But he did what he could do to win. And it's clear that he won. He's a master strategist. And we can't blame him for that. But for me, I think that was the beginning of the whole spiral that we have here. Because you can imagine if it was a mixed religion ticket, then nobody will have monopoly of going to churches and all that. Politicians pander to their base. And I believe that the leading party decided to do that. And we are where we are today. But going to the topic about the consequences, I think it's going to be dire. We may not go down the road of a Rwanda, but definitely this will not help us. Currently, this issue I live in Lagos. A lot of people have stopped talking to themselves in my office because of this, because of things they have seen on WhatsApp broadcasts and on statuses and all that. There's a lot of disharmony going on. The next time you have an altercation in the office, you can be sure to play along those lines. And so we lose objectivity, we lose meritocracy. And the reality is that one of the things that keeps Lagos head and shoulders above virtually every other state in this country is because it's a melting pot. It's because you're bringing in different ideas, different concepts, different behaviors, different strengths and weaknesses, and then we bring it together and we forge it into a solid whole. That is what makes Lagos what it is today. I am not from Lagos. I've been living here for more than a decade. Where I come from, I don't want to mention names. You don't get the kind of opportunities you get in Lagos because of the indigenous politics that we play there. Because like Prof said, and which he did a very good expose on Somalia, the challenge with ethnicity and tribalism, like it spirals down to the minimum. Eventually it will go down to clans, eventually it will go down to families, and eventually it will go down to who is your father and all that. And when you go down that pathway, like I said, the challenge for me, things may not be as bad as the Rwanda kind of, which is an extreme case. I don't think we'll have another Rwanda again because the world will step in before things get that bad. However, if we are not careful, we are going to destroy ourselves. We're going to destroy our relationships. We're going to destroy our harmony. And we're going to destroy the essence of what we call a community if we continue down this path. And I believe we all have a part to play here. What are you sending out there on WhatsApp? Are you confirming the news before you send it? That information before you put it out there, are you thinking of the effect it will have on another person that is reading it? I think all these things are very important. We all have a part to play in making sure that the country can heal after the election. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take two more people on Twitter Spaces, then I'll come back to the guests who have been invited. Chidility is one of those who have their hands up. I don't know. Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me the mic. I greet the audience and the speakers. The point is, from where my brother, second to the last speaker, said, I don't think it's about blaming any candidate here, because we knew where this thing started. We didn't start the election today in Nigeria. We know how it has been, right, from 2011 to today. Even the peace accord the candidate signs, we can see what they do when they go to speak to the people. One will tell you, start abusing the other one, abusing the tribe. The other one will tell you age. This is where it started from. We should caution our politicians, for God's sake. When they sign peace accord, we should hold them responsible. You don't go and begin to insult people and insult their tribe. This one will come and tell you this tribe can never be the president of Nigeria. Does Nigeria belongs to your family? For God's sake. Okay, so when we are talking about how we should move forward, first of all, we need to change the political system of Nigeria. It's very sad that the constitution will allow a party to pick a one religion and telling the other religion you cannot do anything. That is what it means. So that is the beginning and the genesis of the whole issues. Before we used to contest election, Muslim president, Christian vice, Christian president, Muslim is a peaceful election. You went ahead and you forbid everybody and pick Muslim ticket and expect the Christians to be happy in a country where there is insecurity already. Please, let's go back to our political parties, restructure the party constitution, and make it compulsory for people to know what to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chidility. There is Dr. Simi at Simi Solar 10 on Twitter. I see your hand up. Do you want to come up?
Yes.
Your mic is on.
I do.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I thank you. I hope you can all hear me.
We can hear you.
I came up. Great. I came up when I heard someone talking about Peter Obi going to churches, and then obviously the topic is really, really relevant as well. Why this person is going on about Peter Obi going to churches, because we know, if we're old enough, we know that almost all politicians, Muslim, Christian, went to church and they use religion to campaign. And there are human beings in church. I don't really understand why church should not be visited. And this idea of, oh yes, no, you shouldn't go to church and it's religious politics. I don't believe that. I believe that the Muslims use the same to campaign, and everybody does this. And we can all pretend, if we like, and put your thumbs down 100 million times. We know the truth, and we're going to speak the truth. There is nothing wrong with what Peter Obi did, and this is just another tactic to try and paint the man in a way that makes you feel better about yourself. And somebody was saying something around, division in politics than he's ever seen. What on earth? He's brought more unity to politics than I've ever seen. And I'm sure I'm as old as you, whoever said that. I'm sure we're probably the same age. I've never seen a more united Nigeria than when Peter Obi came in. Do not use the actions of people on Twitter spaces who are being aggressive or insulting or being silly to judge Peter Obi himself. Don't do that. Peter Obi, I have met him, I've listened to him in person, and I've never heard another politician with more integrity than this man. Personally, I haven't. I physically went to listen to him, and I think he has a lot of integrity. And at the end of the day, people can support whoever they want to support. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, Nigeria is all about Nigeria being a better country. I'm very happy to follow any leader who's going to make sure that I can feed myself and feed my family and make sure that I can be relevant in the world. That's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And finally, Seun, sorry, the ethnic politics thing, if we're again going to be honest, we have always been divided along ethnic lines, whether you like it or not. The Yoruba, the Igbos, the Hausas generally do not like each other. And I'm not saying that by myself. I went to a unity school. I went to a northern school, and most of my friends are, multi-ethnic. But if we're going to look back at the history of this country, we know that there are issues there, and it's just been highlighted now. We need to stop it. Issues there that were there before these elections. Thank you.
Dr. Simi, thank you so much. Let me get a final one from Twitter Spaces. I see a lot of passion coming from that space. Baron Chimaka, with Chimaka on Twitter. If you can give your intervention quickly.
Hi, Cheryl. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear. Okay. Go ahead, please.
So here's the thing that when I joined these spaces, I I had this problem with the way Nigerians tend to stick their neck in the sand and forget about the real issue on the ground. We must accept as people the southeastern part of the country has over the years feel that they are not treated as part of Nigeria. And if you hear people come on spaces and attack P2B, they are not attacking the man, they are attacking the tribe. Some people feel so quietly somehow, whatever they think it has been passed down through history, that part of the country cannot govern Nigeria. And that's a bad thing. That's not a very good thing. I've lived in the UK for a whole number of years in my life. There was a time that the Prime Minister of UK, that was Theresa May, she campaigned in the church. She went to Redeem Church to try to tell the people what the government planned for ethnic minorities. So here's where the problem, is. If a particular part of people are agitating and saying, something, we don't feel we are part of this country. We don't feel in any way that I think for justice, equity, and fairness, we need to try and be at the center or be at the top of affairs. It is wrong to hold that against them and feel ethnicity is not something to play with. And of course, everybody has talked about it, and I don't know why there cannot be a general agreement that the ruling party choosing a Muslim ticket in a country so divided among ethnic and religious line in Nigeria was the right thing to do. There wasn't a cross-party condemnation. There wasn't across the board citizens condemn particular action. And then you think that people who go and campaign in churches, or as it's always been from probably 1999, Nigerian, political parties has always campaigned in mosques and in churches. You just want to paint a particular candidate bad just because he decided to, seek to govern Nigeria. I think we really need to call people to order. Everybody has the right. I have the right to govern Nigeria if I feel I want to, if I feel I'm capable, if I feel I'm competent. And I think we must also agree among all the candidates that came out in this presidential election, none is as competent as Peter Obi. Let's try and keep this emotion on the check. And when we come to spaces, let's try to consider all the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baron Chimaka. I'll go around the room and I'd like to get a final submissions of every of the guest speaker on the platform. And basically, one thing that is paramount is the fact that the major denominator or the common denominator here is Nigeria. The only commodity that any of the political party, any of the speakers, any one of us have here is Nigeria. And whatever happens, the realization is that we need to keep this country together. And I'd like us to give our final thought on the way forward. We have one more election to go on the 18th of March, but there is intense heat in some parts of the country. How can we douse it? What is the way forward? I'll begin now with Cheta. What are your final thoughts on how we need to move forward?
Before I give my final thoughts, I will accuse you of unfairness. You've not let myself and Sheyi to talk about the issue of where we could go from here.
Yeah, that's why I'm coming. That's why I'm starting with you. So you give your
leave that thing you give leave that thing first. I will talk about where we are going first.
Absolutely.
Then Sheyi will talk about where we are going, and after that we can.
He went on and on for minutes. I had to even interrupt him.
Deji's accusing you here.
Deji, the guy that's been hogging the mic, it is you. You are interrupting again. So, basically, one of the problems we have in this country is that we don't study our history. We've had ethnic conflict before. We've had ethnic. My grandfather and 4 of my uncles were killed in the Asaba massacre on the same day. So we have all of that. We have that bitter history, and we've chosen to sweep it under the carpet rather than airing it. Hamza talked about going to Kigali. I've also been to Kigali, and that's one place where Rwanda is better than us. They aired their problems. What a lot of people do not know is that the Nigerian Civil War was a war where the most people died in Africa of starvation, not of military causes. Is that what we want again? The answer should be no. But in order to get to that point, we need to be able to air those grievances. And I'll repeat a phrase I used earlier: learn to talk to each other, not shout at each other. That's one of the fundamental problems. We shout at each other all the time rather than listen to what each person has to say. The truth is always somewhere in the middle. But we're like the six blind men and the elephants. Each person is holding on to his own idea of what Nigeria should be. And you can't build a nation like that. You can't build a country like that. Um, Ultimately, I believe that Nigeria is here to stay. Nigeria is not going anywhere. So, as Simi on the Twitter Spaces said earlier, that she claims that the Igbo, the Hausa, and the Yoruba hate each other. I don't think so. I think that the problem with Nigeria is distinctly economic. This fight for resources. So my solution, of course, it's a simplistic one, is we need to weaken Abuja, and then we need for our constituent parts to learn to trade with each other. Ultimately, if people who do not trade with each other will fight with each other. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Deji,
Fabulous.
next time I'll come and visit you again in prison.
I hope that he doesn't go to prison, please. Let me bring Sheila.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Sheila, it's your turn.
So, Mr. Sean, this is my turn.
Iwa local. Iwa local, Sheila.
Yes. You know, like Cheta said, we truly as a people have to come to understand that what is happening right now is not new, and that we've been here before, and what was witnessed in the Civil War is not something that we want to see repeat itself. Whether we like it or not, it looks as if it's just online, but there are people who already have inbuilt anger. And if we don't take time, the more we allow what is happening online to fester, the more it will deteriorate offline. And so we have to be very careful. We all know, whether we like it or not, we can pretend over it. We know where this will lead us if it is not curtailed. You know, I was talking with a friend, and he said that we should be able to hold ourselves accountable to whatever we say and whatever we put out there. And when some set of people have refused to call their supporters to order, you have a loud voice. For somebody like me as a person, if I put a tweet out there or I put a post out there and somebody comes with tribalism and all those stuff and, you know, this insulting and all those stuff under the post that is targeted at the people who are not supporting my candidate, what I try to do immediately is to delete it and not condone it. And I try to also send messages to that person to say, see, if you want to comment on my page, let us try and be objective. You know, that it's not a place to start insulting each other. So those who have the voices must be able to call their supporters to order. Because if we don't do it, the same way some people are doing it online, some people will take it offline. And we have to be very careful. We don't want to see, like Farouk said, Prof said, a lot of us, we have intermarried. And whether we like it or not, a generation is coming that will be more Nigerian than we are. I'm married to somebody from Abia State. My kids are now Yoruba and Igbo. Whether I like it or not, that is who they are. Now they
Your kids have tainted blood.
and so we must be careful and try as much as possible not to spread hatred that can degenerate beyond social media. And when it comes to talk about the final words, I think I will wait for that time.
You can as well do it now. Go ahead.
Okay. I think for me personally, you know, I think a lot of what is going on online we have to give people the benefit of a doubt. We have to give them the room to be objective. Let everybody be able to, air their views without being shut down, so that they don't have inbuilt anger. A lot of people, like some people are saying, talking about religion, a lot of all the pastors that I saw who are not of I don't want to. A lot of the pastors started prophesying a particular candidate as the winner of the election. And this is one of the things that is really pushing the narrative of who won and who didn't win the election. And then when some pastors took their stand to say, oh, I'm not saying anything, and these are respected people from a particular tribe, the insults that came to those pastors, I expected that the presidential candidate whose supporters were doing that would be able to talk to them, to say no, because whether you like it or not, I spoke with a lot of people also, and I saw that some people felt very, highly disrespected and feel like these are men that we respect. They are talking down on our tribe. And these are some of the things that are building, that is building in, the anger and all those stuff, which are the things that we don't want to see. Churches have to know how to manage what comes out from the altar. The mosques also have to manage what comes out from the mosques. We should be able to separate religion from politics. We need to understand we need to find a way to do that. And then again, we need to allow people express themselves and not being shut down. Really.
All right. Thank you so much, Sheyilo, for your intervention. Let me go to Atlanta with Professor Peregi.
Well, mine is simple. I think I'm going to repeat what I said earlier.
Okay.
Given our peculiarities as a multi-ethnic nation with different religions, of course, there's nothing about us that is unusual. And I always give the example of India. India is way more complex than we are. India is over 1 billion people, which means there are more people in India than there are in the entire African continent. And they're just a country. And they have religions that are doctrinally incompatible. They have Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Islam, Christianity, and they exist. And they have over 550 ethnic groups. Some of the ethnic groups are even racial divisions. And they're still the same country. It's not perfect. They have their own fractiousness every once in a while, but it hasn't gotten to the point of saying, hey, we need to divide, we need to be separate. We don't need to be in the same country. So when people talk about Nigeria's complexity as if it were unexampled, as if it's one of its kind in the world, it's not. But if India can exist as a nation with all of its complexities, we can. If we want to talk about religion in Nigeria, Islam and Christianity, they share a lot of doctrines in common. Musa is Moses. Isaac is Ishaq. And there are many stories that resonate, they're the same. So we have a basis for rapprochement. We have a basis for similarities. And a lot of our ethnic groups, in fact, I've written a lot of articles on this. And Cheta made reference to that earlier. They evolved from the same source. Yoruba and Igbo, about 1,000 years ago, were the same people. The differentiation of Yoruba and Igbo into the different languages that they are today is relatively recent in human history. And there's an article I'm working on that. And you see the surviving linguistic evidence of these common origins. So there's a lot that we can work with if we are truly invested in having a nation. And for me, one of the ways to minimize the effect of ethnic and religious politics is to constitutionalize power rotation. I know people say it's not democratic, but what is democracy? There's no there's no inherent form of a democracy must take. Every responsible, functional democracy has to be sensitive to the history, peculiarities, and nature of the people that it's supposed to serve. The United States has its electoral college, which elects president. People don't elect presidents directly in America. They elect electors who go to form an electoral college that then now, appoint the president. That's why what's his name? Donald Trump lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes in 2016, but he became the president. And why do they have that? They have rural states, they have urban states. There are people who are in support of the American Revolution. There are those who are patriots who wanted America to be part of the British Empire. You had all kinds of divisions, and they came together and had a compromise. And one of the compromises was that they were not going to elect their president directly. It's working for them. It's not democratic, but it's working for them. We should have ours as well. Let us constitutionalize power rotation so that in every election year, we'll say every single political party, let's start from somewhere, must choose their candidates from this region. And we already have our 6 geopolitical zones. We could make them a little better. And within those zones, we should have also other zones so that when it comes to this, it should go next to the other person. It's not democratic, but it's one of the ways to reduce tension so that if these elections cycle, every single presidential candidate or an Igbo person, Peter Obi will not be going from church to church because that would be pointless. He did that as a way to checkmate the advantages that he thought his other opponents would have. And then people talk about the Muslim ticket in ways that also don't even realize the complexity of Nigeria. Tinubu had to do that. Tinubu had 2 choices: do the right thing and not even have a fighting chance at all, or do the wrong thing and have a fighting chance. All politicians will want to win, and so he chose winning. And it's just as bad as PDP throwing open its presidential run and getting a northerner to win it. It's the same thing. Politicians will always do anything to win an election, but we need institutional mechanisms to ensure that this happens. People are not going to, out of the goodness of their own heart, do the right thing and risk losing an election. So to expect Tinubu to not choose a candidate that will cause him to win the election is to frankly overrate the capacity of human beings to do what is right. No, people are going to do what gives them an advantage. One of the ways to stop that is to have institutional mechanisms. And that's why I'm an advocate for a constitutional amendment that makes power rotation, not just at the federal level, but also at state levels and local levels possible, so that everyone gets a sense of belonging and sense that they matter in the Nigerian Union.
Thank you so much, Prof. Deji, it's your turn.
Yes, basically, in my view, I believe that I'll slightly agree with Prof that the Muslim ticket was a trigger, but it shouldn't have triggered a presidential candidate to the level of making his entire campaign about religion and tribe. It shouldn't have triggered the church to the point that the church become so partisan in politics that they do not know that 25 years down the line, these actions will have consequences. Every election has consequences. Every election. That was why I won Nigerians in 2015 when they were voting Buhari. I said, don't vote this man, because this man overthrew a democratically elected government. And if he comes to power, he's going to do the same or even worse. And Buhari did not disappoint. Buhari didn't surprise me when he was sending me to jail. I knew that he was coming to send people like me to jail. And our ethnic divide, when people criticize me, people supporting Obi, and I look at the names, they are largely from a particular part of the country. I'm never surprised when I go to my Facebook, because that's where you really see people's true identity, where they come from. You can use fictitious names on Twitter to open, but people use their real names. Majority of the people that criticize me because I'm criticizing their candidate are from a particular ethnic group. Majority of the people that have criticized me in the last 8 years of Buhari are from a particular place in the country. And I'm not bothered, but in my entire life, I've never had a reason or a cause to defend my ethnic group or my tribe, because I just feel people who do it, their education is a waste, a complete waste. Because I can never understand why people put tribe against nationhood. I can never understand why people put tribe and ethnicity and religion above humanity. For me, I know that for the politicians and their supporters, all that matters is the end justifies the means. But a nation must be more than just that. A nation must be about humanity. A nation must be about survival. If your candidate wins today using religion or tribe, don't you care what happens to our children and our grandchildren? Don't you care that tomorrow or 4 years or 8 years down the line, another person will come and he will start visiting mosque from one mosque to the other for 7 months as well, because somebody has already done it? Don't you think that the entire mosque in Nigeria will also endorse a candidate like the way the church did a few weeks ago? So these are things that should matter. It should not just be about I want to win election. It should not be about I want to go to court or I must be declared a winner of an election. The nation should matter. The survival of the nation. Nationhood is about ideals. It's not about politicians. It's not about ambition. Politics will come and politics will go. Politics have gone now. The gubernatorial that politicians are killing themselves over, it will soon be over. So people must realize that when we criticize people, we're not criticizing because we have issues with them. No. If Atiku does it, I'll criticize him. If Tinubu does it, I'll criticize him. Whoever does it, I criticize them, because I'm mindful of the fact that today a politician may be contesting and supporters may be supporting a particular politician today. Tomorrow they'll be supporting another politician on the other side of the divide. So people must be mindful of the fact that the survival of the nation is more important than their candidates. The survival of a nation is more important than their political party. The survival of the nation, because if there was no nation, their candidate would not even be running in the first place. So for me, my takeaway from this election and moving forward is that pastors, imams, they must stay at the pulpit, focus on salvation and leave politics alone. Those who have become desperate to join politics, they should abandon the calling, join a political party and become politicians. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amza. You're the one sending us out of this podcast with your final thought.
Nigeria must come first before anything else. If anything go wrong because of religious, ethnicity, and regional lines, it will consume each and every one of us. I think that it's important for us to have those difficult conversations, but we must respect, we must recognize that we're a diverse nation and each and every voice and person matters.
Fantastic conversations, which when we were talking and thinking about this particular topic, it came from a few of the incidents that we've seen and leading up to the governorship election, and we thought about the fact that the consequences are going to be dire. We may not have all of the ideas on what this conversation was going to be like, the disagreement, the agreement, but I do know that what makes Nigeria a wonderful nation is the multiplicity of backgrounds, of religion, of ethnicity, of beliefs, and even of knowledge. Nigerians are some of the most fantastic people you find anywhere you step your feet. But one thing that is very important going forward is that this election has taught us a big lesson. And if you don't take those lessons important, we're going to lose the whole essence of this curve. And that is why in the next election on the 18th of March, we need to be very, very intentional with what we say, how we say it, and perhaps the way we behave. But that's how we call it a wrap on this edition of Mycon Podcast, where everybody's opinion counts, because the mic is always on, and when it is, it's for the independent mind. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. I must sincerely thank you, Amza Lawal, the Chief Executive of Connect Development, Dejade Anju, an activist, a rights activist, Professor Farouk Barogi, a professor of journalism in the United States. Thank you so much, Prof. It's good to see you. And my very good brother, Cheta Nwanze. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. And thank you so much indeed for your time today. And my very good brother, Sheila. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for your intervention. I sincerely want to thank you. You are real Nigerians and fantastic human beings in all ramifications. Thank you so much indeed for watching. I'm Sean Kimaloy. I'll see you next time. The mic is on for the independent mind. Next time, we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Sean Kimaloy. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.